Works on panels. Today I'm joined by Julie and Marie-Louise and hopefully Andy later, who's having a few technical issues. So we will tune him in if he manages to sort of get here. So before we sort of like crack on, do you ladies just want to introduce yourselves, let people know who you are and what you do? So Julie, do you want to go first?
Yes, so hello everybody. My name is Julie Futcher and I run a business called The Sales Ace. And what I do is I help business owners skyrocket their sales. I do that by sales training and sales consultancy, either in-house or through workshops. So that's what I do. Julie Futcher, The Sales Ace.
Excellent. And Marie-Louise?
Yeah, so I'm Marie-Louise O'Neill and my business is called Lovely Evolution. I'm a branding and Canva design specialist, so trained graphic designer, and have been using Canva since 2017. And not only design within Canva, I also offer various training options for non-designers. So it's perfect for small businesses who want to do it themselves in Canva. That's me.
Right. Okay, thank you. Andy's just joined us, so let's see if I can get him on the screen. Andy, can you hear us? And is your audio working? I'm guessing that's a no, unless he's just frozen. Oh.
Bless him, he's not having a lot of...
not having a good day, is he?
With technology.
Okay, we'll leave him there for the time being and crack on and see if he tunes in. What I thought we'd look at today is just what your thoughts are on how small businesses can best invest their sales and marketing budget. Should they have a budget? Should they be allocating a certain amount of their turnover or profit to marketing? And just to explore that. If we get any questions from the floor, as I said, or any of these live stream things, I can bring it on screen. And obviously this will be replayed elsewhere, so people may comment at a later date. So Julie, over to you then. What are your thoughts on small businesses and their sales and marketing budget?
So this is an interesting one. It's one I get asked an awful lot, is how much should I invest in this? And I think having some amount of money to look at marketing and sales, but it's a fallacy to say that you need lots and lots of money. There are certain things that you can do. There's a little that you can do. There's a lot if you really want to. But I think it's looking at and being fully aware of, first of all, is about who your target market is. And before you start throwing money at all of these avenues of marketing, it's really thinking about that, thinking about your target market, really doing sort of an analysis on that, and then thinking about how they would want to be communicated with. So, for example, if your target market is not on Facebook, why invest heavily in Facebook marketing? It's things like that. I think from a sales point of view, one of the things that I talk to people about is a sales plan. That's really the first sort of step that you make, but you don't have to invest a lot of money in that. An Excel spreadsheet will work really well with that, and a CRM system. And there are lots of free CRM systems out there. There's lots of ones out there. I use personally something called Capsule. It's £12 a month. It connects into my Xero. It connects into my MailChimp. And it's really quite flexible. So I suppose my advice is don't spend lots of money if you don't need to. That's what I would say. ML, what do you think?
So I think, like you said, Julie, you don't need to spend masses and masses of amount on it. I'd say it's about investing wisely and having a strategy about it. And I think a good use of your spend is to work with a marketing expert. So Andy Sarson is all about marketing, or get recommendations as well. And a lot of marketing experts offer sort of like a power hour type thing, or an hour session, or a couple of hours, and you can really kind of drill down and have that strategy, which you then implement either yourself Or, another thing that is quite useful is to work with virtual assistants as well. I think as small businesses, it's really easy to get really wrapped up in doing it all yourself. I know it's something that I have myself, where I'm trying to move away from doing everything myself and outsourcing a bit more, so that I can spend my time on what I'm really good at. And yeah, so it's working out where is your time and money best spent. And the first port of call is, if you're not a strategy board yourself, then paying for an expert to have that brainstorm, so that you can be like, okay, what am I going to do for the year ahead? And then you can focus. Then what do you do next? How do you implement that?
I think outsourcing is a really good point. I know when I first started my business 7-8 years ago, when I went self-employed, I personally didn't have the money to pay somebody to do anything. But very, very quickly, social media for me was something that I wanted to explore, because my target markets were on that, LinkedIn and Facebook. But I was spending hours trying to create the content, stream it myself. And in the end, I just said enough, and I need somebody to do it. And it was the best thing I did, because I then could concentrate on what I was good at. They could take that away from me, and it was worth the money that I spent on it, because I was able to generate more revenue just by concentrating on things. So I think that's a really good point, Emil. Really good point.
And also, you can get stuck into a bit of a hamster wheel of being busy all the time, because you are doing these tasks, doing social media and all these things that are important, but you can easily waste your time doing it if that's not your area of expertise, or your time could be better spent doing something else. And that mental load, I've certainly experienced it myself, where you're trying to do so much, and sort of being able to kind of grow a bit of a mini team, and you can do that in phases, is a good strategy to have in business in general. Like, think about how you can outsource, even if you plan to be always sort of a business of one, but like a business of one and kind of consultants that you work with.
Yeah.
Andy, have we got you on audio at the moment? Do you want to give it a go? No?
No, he's having
He's put some stuff in the comments. I'll read out what he's put in the comments. So he's put, there's no doubt that marketing is an incredibly powerful tool for businesses. When done right, marketing can increase your business profile and brand to prospects, showing your products and services the solution to their needs, ultimately driving inquiries and increasing sales. But let's be honest, it doesn't always work. Marketing is not a magic wand. There are plenty of ways your marketing efforts can fail, but you don't want to hear that when you're investing in marketing, do you? I guess you don't. No, so you touched on target marketing, Julie, in your initial comment, which is, in my experience, a lot of small businesses don't tend to have a target market. And my view is that they somehow think that by narrowing down their target market, rather than just sort of saying they can supply services to all businesses, they think they're actually going to miss out on opportunities. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've had those conversations before, and in actual fact, it works the opposite in my experience. Trying to be all things to all people, you dilute your message, your product. For me, when I'm working with clients on sales strategy, we really make sure that we are understanding who our target market is. From a marketing perspective, it's then how you communicate with that target market, and making sure that you're in the mediums of where you're going to attract them, the message is right. From a sales point of view, in a target market, is really understanding their needs, their wants, their issues, their problems, how you actually benefit, what's your USP, and how you have those conversations with people from I call it with them, a what's in it for me factor, so that they'll come to you. Becoming a specialist in areas which a lot of my clients have done has actually increased their market and has increased their revenue, because you then really niching down, people come to you because you are an expert in that field. So take me, for example, my background is recruitment. When I do sales training in that, I win a lot of business in that area because that is a specialist area for me. I don't just do recruitment, I do right across the board. Another one that I seem to do a lot of specialism in is engineering and technical sales. And again, I have clients come to me because I have that understanding of what it means to be in those markets. So from those point of view, it's absolutely key. It helps your marketing budget because you're focused. It helps your time budget, and I use time budget because we've only got a certain length of time. You're just putting all of your time into those particular areas. And that is key. So, when I sit down and look at sales planning with people and sales strategy with people, this target market is absolutely key. And for me, sales and marketing should do this. It should really knit together, one feed, implement each other. So, that's my thoughts on it.
Yeah, Andy's commented that you're quite right. You'll be pleased to know. He said it's crucial to understand where marketing efforts can go wrong. That way you can avoid many issues that businesses encounter. It's still relatively early in the year, and I want to make sure you have the right marketing strategy and plan to reach your target market. Marie-Louise, your thoughts?
So I agree that having a clear idea of who you want to work with and who you don't want to work with is at the foundation of your branding, marketing and sales. And I think it's a step that people often skip over. And even if you do it to quite a surface level, and definitely putting it down on paper or creating some sort of document where you kind of bring that person to life. You might have more than one ideal client. Within the business community, we've got Jessica Shales from Ideal Marketing that really has done some really great guest talks as part of the business community meetings. And both Julie and I are in her marketing course, so we're really digging down. We've done quite a lot of work on ideal clients already, but it's great to go into another layer of detail, which I think is definitely going to impact and improve our own marketing efforts going forward.
Yeah.
But I think the thing for me is that, knowing who you want to work with, who you want to attract from a branding and design point of view is also important, because it's going to decide what colors you use, fonts, what does your logo look like, imagery, all of those things. And as well as the messaging as well, and, when you're networking, being able to say, I work with XYZ, I'm looking for this, that, or the other, as well as obviously the services you offer. But by giving specific examples when you're having a one-to-one with someone means that they're able to be like, the light bulb goes off. And as Julie says, far from turning people away, people think, there's that transferable skills, or there's enough similarities that even though I'm not in that specific category that this person's talking about, I could fit into it, or it helps with referrals. So it absolutely does help, it, rather than by niching down, it narrows your kind of opportunity to work. It also cuts out competition. So I don't think I'm really in direct competition with people, because I'm so clear about who I want to work with, the value that I offer, my methodology and my ideal clients, that even though I know a number of branding strategy experts, a number of designers, for the most part, I don't feel that I'm in competition. In fact, I've collaborated with them because I've defined that clear niche of being recognized for that. People think of Canva, people think of me. I'm okay with that. I think great. And that's the power. Yeah, hashtag Canva girl. But the power of that is being known as that specialist.
Yeah.
Building up that recognition and the opportunities that can lead to is incredibly powerful.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I know I set out, when I set up my previous business as sales manager and the sales ace, I set out to be an expert in my field, and that's what I've done. And people think sales, think Julie. I think one thing that was kind of going through my brain as we were talking about defining markets is you have to analyze this and review it as well and look at what is successful. I like to try and review every 6 months the marketing activity I'm doing versus return on investment. Now, some of that is a long-term return on investment. Things like social media, you're not going to have people flocking to your doors within the first 5 minutes. But it is important to review that. And that's where, again, small businesses fall down because they keep throwing money at things thinking they're working when actually they're not.
The shiny thing syndrome.
Yeah, bright shiny thing syndrome. And, you know, you have to, if you've got a limited budget, you know, yes, in the early days of when you start your business, try things come along, you try it. Okay, well, I'm prepared to throw X amount of money at it and see what happens. But you also have to be really brutal with it and say, actually, after 6 months, this isn't working for me. I haven't seen anything. Do I continue this for another 3? Or do I say, do you know what? I've tried it. Let's walk away and let's try something else. And that's something that I'm pretty hot on. LinkedIn, for example, for me, has always been a really, really good revenue generator. The business community as a networking tool and referral tool, again, for me, has been a fantastic revenue generator. Hence the reason why Paul will never get rid of me, because so he might think that's a good thing, he might not. What can I say?
So you're not just for Christmas then.
No.
Andy's put many small businesses simply doing some marketing without any thought about how it fits in with your overall business goals, perhaps chasing a new trend, or someone has said you should be doing a particular activity. In my opinion, these are the reasons marketing fails. And then also Adam's made a few comments. Adam Payne, thanks for tuning in, Adam. So he's just sort of referring to the earlier comment that, yeah, marketing and sales should be aligned. I think that was your comment, Julie. And then also sort of referring to the customer avatar, sort of talking about looking the psychographics, not just demographics of the thing. And then finally he agrees with you, Marie-Louise. So you've got a raving fan out there. So thanks for your comment. If anybody is listening to this or tuning in now or on a replay, then please do ask a question, put something in the comments on whichever platform you're viewing on or the chat, and we'll try and address it. So in terms of the amount of money that somebody should spend on marketing, do you have a feel for a percentage of either their turnover or their profit that they should be reinvesting in their business? Do you have a gauge for that in your experience?
Well, I have heard that it should be around 10 to 20% of your turnover or profit. I'm not really sure. There is some sort of general broad advised percentage of that, but I guess it depends where you're at on your kind of business journey. If you're a startup, you've got a certain amount of either savings or money that's coming in each month that you can put aside. So it's not so much about kind of what you projected want to earn and then putting in that as your marketing budget, 10% of that. But I think it comes back to being strategic about what you're spending on your money. If money is tight, it's been a difficult couple of years, don't stop marketing, don't stop, don't do all of that, but just think, what can you dial back and what can you focus on, and just define what feels reasonable for you as a small business owner to spend on, and look to, again, the bigger picture or longer term thing of what you can spend right now, because you don't want to, put yourself out of business by going crazy with marketing and spending money on everything. But then think about what you might want to increase your marketing budget later on or next year. Again, sort of, if you've got that strategy of what you want to be earning, you can also attribute some of that potential earnings or future, earnings towards that marketing, so that you keep filling that funnel of leads and that, work.
I think the other thing that I would add to that, and I agree with what you've said, Emel, is also it depends on the average cost of your customer, in my opinion. So if you are a business that are attracting or sort of your product, your offering is something of high value, then probably what you're going to spend on your marketing to attract those types of customers might outweigh what somebody whose average customer might only be spending £50 to £100. And so I think that has to be taken into consideration. A consultant might be prepared to spend a bit more because from their Adam's just put something up in there saying cost per acquisition. It is about a consultant might spend more because their average customer spend is quite high. Somebody running a small sort of card gifting business might spend less because their customers spend less. So that for me again goes back to the analysis of your target market, knowing who, really being clear about who that market is and who you're talking to. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yes. I think that's an easier and better way of looking at it, because it's more immediate, because you can then adjust that marketing spend as you grow. Because again, often when people are sort of earlier on in their business, what they're charging may, their pricing strategy might be a bit lower until they've established themselves, done that work on getting the pricing right. And then obviously that may evolve and grow over time as well. I think that's a really nice way of doing it, because you're not kind of thinking about, something that may or may not happen. You can be a bit more flexible out through the months.
Yeah, just to bring Andy in the in our silent office. So he's put in the lack of strategy, you don't understand your customers, no real calls to action, using wrong channels, poor targeting, not patient enough to achieve results. Test and adapt is a good way forward. And his comment is, with regard to spend, rule of thumb in his view is 7 to 15% of turnover on marketing. Here's a question for you from Mark Exley. What if your target market is broad?
So this is interesting, Mark, because we had a conversation. I don't know whether you've been in from the beginning. It depends what you mean your target market is broad. It goes back to really screwing into who those individuals are in that marketplace. So if your target market is broad and you're dealing with every type of business, from one-man bands through to corporate businesses, you almost have to have separate avatars for each of those target markets, understand each of those target markets, and analyze your cost per acquisition, and then go out and spend on advertising or marketing for those sorts of markets. You can't just blanket market. And Andy has said this earlier, it's about strategy. And that's where strategy comes in. I would also, and I've had conversations with my clients when they say their market is broad. And I say, really? Really, is it that broad? Because who is it your product actually benefits? And for me as a salesperson, the conversations I'm always having with my client is, how does your product and service meet the needs, wants, issues and problems of that particular marketplace?
Yeah, Mark's elaborated and just sort of said multi-sector, wide range of turnovers, etc.
Yeah.
I think, there are going to be certain instances, if you look at your customer base, that it is seemingly diverse. But my view is, if you really break it down to who is your ideal customer, what works best for you, you probably will find a more defined pattern.
Yeah.
And even if you do have a diverse range, you've still got to think about your marketing. Because if someone comes to your homepage on your website, you're trying to be all things to all people, and you're not directly relating your product or service to the person that's landed on your website, I think that's an issue. So, you've really got to think about, how you, it's not just the websites in all your marketing, just use your website as an example, is, make sure you're sending people to specific landing pages that talk about the specific issues they're facing and the problems you can address, because it won't be the same for every type of business in terms of what you're offering. You know, that they won't be getting the benefits for them will be different for each different sector and each different type of business, in my view. So it's go on, Julie.
Also, I'm going to add to that as well, is don't forget, who do you want to work with?
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we forget that as small business owners. Yes, our product or service might benefit a number of different industry sectors, business sizes, etc. But that doesn't mean to say that we have to market to all of those. It might be that you have a look at things and decide that actually I only want to work with a certain industry or a certain size of business because that's what you want to do. And I am a big advocate of you choose how you do business. You shouldn't be pushed into doing business with certain areas just because you think you have to. It's about what you want your business to look at. And again, those are conversations that I have with a lot of my clients. The word should comes out all the time, and I say, no, not should. What do you want? Sorry, go on, Amel.
I was just going to sort of come back to Mark Exley's comment, and just I would challenge you and or give you a bit of homework. No, not challenging that in terms of I think it's a very powerful exercise to try and identify some different categories of ideal clients, because we all have different, there isn't just, it's very rare to be so, particularly small businesses, we don't really generally go, oh, we only work with that kind of one person. We tend to have multiple ideal clients, and and that kind of maybe slightly broader niche. So I would say try and dig down and think about what are the commonalities, are there different categories, and if you've got say 3, and then the more detailed you can go, the better, because it's more getting inside that person's head. And again, thinking it's great also for content as well, because you're then thinking about, well, what problem does that particular ideal client have? And you can create a social media post for it. You could do a LinkedIn article answering that. It could be a blog post. And then suddenly you're not sitting there going, oh, what am I going to what am I doing? And it comes back to going, okay, these are the different categories of people I want to communicate to. These are the problems that they have that I solve. And you can create some quite targeted messaging and content aimed at them.
Yeah, Adam just made another comment about being true to your personal core values, principles and behaviours, which I think is also true. I think the issue is when you start a small business, I'm not sure whether desperate's the word, you're keen to get on anybody that you can. And therefore, I don't think you consider, when I first started, I didn't consider target market. I just thought, I'm going to go out there, open my stall and they will come and buy, sort of thing. And I wasn't very choosy about who I dealt with in the early days. And I think that can be an issue if going forward, if you're not able to cleanse your client base at some point, when you realise you do need to focus on a particular type of business. Kevin's commented, I have people in sectors I specifically don't work with as a starting point. That's probably because they don't like you, Kevin, isn't it? I mean, come on.
I think that is actually a very good point that Kevin makes, because it's sometimes, especially when you're starting out to define who you want to work with, sometimes it's easier to say who you don't want to work with. And by looking at who you have worked with in the past, and again, that you haven't liked working with, what was it? What were the issues there with it? That means that they wouldn't be a good fit, as well as thinking, who have you worked with that was really great to work with? And as Adam said, it may be more value based. So you may not be niching down like by industry or this or that, but maybe it's about actually when you have that one-to-one with someone who's a potential client, is there a connection there? Are they an idiot? And therefore you're like, thank you, next, in the nicest possible way, But, you are your own, it's your business. No one is forcing you to work with that idiot. no one, you know, if you say no, exactly. So, you know, don't work with idiots. That's my key amazing
That's your
advice.
top tip for the day, is it?
That's my thought of today. Don't work with idiots.
If nobody leaves with anything else, that is what you
Don't
need
work
to
with
leave
idiots.
with. Don't work with idiots.
But
I'm
picking up on
keeping
what
it
you said,
PG
Paul.
relatively.
I think picking up on what you said, Paul, about in the early days when you start your business, you want, you know, you're taking what business you can, and you do, because at the early days, you know, you're establishing your brand, you're finding what works for you. You got your mortgage to pay, you know, and things like that. You've got bills to pay, but certainly as the time goes on, your confidence grows. You are more confident in your offering and what you're doing, and then you're then starting to get a feel for where your specific what's the word I'm saying, where you want to work, who you really do value, you really good value with. And sometimes, I mean, I think about some of this, you know, the evolution of how I've worked in self-employed. You know, in the early days, I've clung on to offering particular services because it's an emotional thing. But actually now I'm quite brutal with it. But that's taken 5-6 years, even me, to be quite brutal about, no, it's not working. Let's just get rid of it. Let's just not.
I think I've found you quite brutal since I met you, Julie, in fairness.
Yeah, but you like that, Paul.
But
you pay me for that.
Right, moving rapidly on and bringing Andy back into the conversation. So Andy sort of commented, once you've got your marketing right and working, don't forget the value of customer experience. That'll probably be a topic for a future one of these, actually, because I think it's important, and it's build the relationship with them to ensure that they stay as customers and are happy to refer you. And again, we'll probably look at referrals. Mark Ferguson has commented, but the comment's quite long, Mark, so we'll try and bring it up, but I'm not sure whether it will take up the whole of the screen. Yeah, it doesn't actually sort of like come up. So he's just put, shall I probably read it rather than. So Mark's tuned in, sort of picking up on the target marketing comments. It's important to avoid the term general public. We begin with who's the audience, what are their needs, what's our message in our response, how do we communicate this to them effectively, truthfully and creatively, what do we want them to do, i.e. act with this information, always keeping in mind the audience, so what, and what's in it for me, which you touched on earlier, Julie, so thanks for that, Mark.
Can I just pick up a point on what Andy said about don't forget the customer experience and generating customers where you've got referrals. And this is a really big point and a good point for sales. So we spend an awful lot of time when we're talking about what money we should be spending on marketing and what we should be spending on sales. But actually, if you, when you start to build your business, build a business where your customers keep coming back to you, you then generate a business where you've got lots of regular customers coming through. You don't have to spend then masses on marketing because you've got this lovely regular business. You've got people that refer to you, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. I work with a lot of companies that spend a lot of money on new business development. And when I go in on a consultancy basis and say, that's absolutely great, now let's look at how you're retaining clients, they kind of look at me as if I've gone out. They don't invest the time. So Andy's point is a really, really big one. You know, if customers are spending with you, keep that relationship. What else of other products and services that you can offer them and upsell and cross-sell, because that's cheaper than investing lots more money in generating new customers.
Sorry, I'm multitasking in the background. I was just looking up a quote.
I thought you were stunned by my answer there, Paul.
Yeah, absolutely, you brutal person. So now the quote I was looking for, because I want to sort of bring up the topic of well, let me tell the quote and then take it from there. So a guy called John Wanamaker, who was a famous industrialist in the sort of 1800s, early 1900s, said, half the money I spend on advertising is wasted. The trouble is I don't know which half. And I think that's an issue for businesses as well, because what they're not doing is they're not really measuring the effectiveness of the different channels that they're using to market their products and services. So what are your thoughts on that then? What should small businesses be measuring? How do they measure it? Is it easy to measure? You know, what sort of things should they be doing?
For me, I think it's important. I encourage my clients to do that. And what I do is really simple. I'm really not a complex sort of person. Is I analyze in 6 months what invoices that I've sent out, and then I analyze where did that business come from. And I do it on a spreadsheet. CRMs, I think, can do that. I've just set my CRM system to do that, and I review it and I look at the common denominators. So I know from my business community, LinkedIn, and referrals are the key things that generate probably 80 to 90% of the business that comes in, newer business. I have, like Andy's done, created a business where customers keep coming back to me. I've got clients who've been with me 20 years through different sorts of careers. And yes, I am that old.
I was going to say you must have started when you were 12, actually.
Oh, Paul, you're now my favourite person. So yeah, that it is that. And I've lost my train of thought, so I'm going to pass over to ML now.
Sorry, Julie. Really?
So I'm aware of the shoulda, woulda, couldas when it comes to tracking, performance of marketing, and I don't really. I do make a note of who's referred work to me, or who's recommended me. I do try and track that, but I haven't formalized it. I do have a very technical spreadsheet in Google Sheets with like leads and things, and I think it'd be good to put a column in there of where did I meet that person. I have like it in the notes, but I think it'd be good to revisit that and check that. But from time to time I have done a bit of an audit, in terms of networking. Where am I networking? What kind of business have I got out there? What did it, how did that perform in terms of money in? So I do very loosely keep an eye on where things are coming in from, but not probably in a measurable way. It could be better. There's room for improvement. I'm not perfect.
I think you're typical, like a lot of small businesses. The order comes in and you crack on delivering it, don't you, without necessarily worrying about where it came from. And I think that you don't want to, what do they call it, paralysis by analysis. You don't want to be spending half your week analysing where the business comes from. But the simple things, even just asking people, how did you find out about me? If it's not clear, and certainly with technology today, it's a lot easier to use tracking emails, tracking landing pages, tracking phone numbers for any campaigns that you're doing that don't cost a lot of money and will actually give you an indication of, where that lead has actually come through. And sometimes people don't remember, in fairness. Often the answer I get is, I Googled you. That is as good a reason as any, but that's hard to sort of have any real control over, other than sort of SEO and your website of the yin yang. But I think it is important to have some idea of where those opportunities are coming from, because of course if you know a certain marketing channel is working, if you bet X you get 5X back, then usual rule of thumb, I'm sure Andy will agree, is that will continue to happen, and then just keep fine-tuning that, just keep fine-tuning your message, fine-tuning what you're doing on those channels, just to make sure you get the highest number of leads in, and then it's down to conversion rate, which is probably another conversation for another day.
I think we've also spoken a lot on here about monetary value and what we should be spending on our businesses in marketing and sales, but there's also a time element that we should be spending on our businesses. We as small business people, and I know this because I'm on my own now. It's gentleman.
Any more of your family going to randomly wander in? Okay, I'm expecting to see your mother next.
Yeah. We get caught up in the day-to-day running of our business, but in these sort of things that we're talking about, we need to take that time out to actually work on our business and not in our business. Now, Monday mornings for me are great. I spend probably an hour and a half on a Monday morning. I do the accounts. I look at my sales plan. I look at where I'm at, what I need to do, where I need to sort of be a bit more active on marketing. And I have a quarterly planning session with myself. Before COVID, I used to go and sit in a nice hotel have a nice lunch with myself, get the spreadsheet out, and actually just spend some time away from the world, thinking about what I want to achieve over that next quarter. And that for me is an investment of my time, but it's just so important. And unfortunately, too many small business owners, we run on a hamster wheel. It's all up here. It's not on a piece of paper. It's not there in front of them. And it's, for me, it's almost like that exercise of being accountable to myself to actually achieve what I want to achieve. So that would be my piece of advice. ML's is don't work with idiots. Mine is take time to work on your business, not in your business.
Okay. Any last comment, Andy? Because that seems like a nice place to end. If you want to type anything in the chat, just give him a chance to do that. So yeah, if you have tuned into this on replay and you want to ask any questions, even though we won't be live, I'll tag these guys into where this is appearing so they can always come back to you and respond to you. I'll just sort of see how fast a typer Andy is. Or whilst he's doing that, Mark's just made another comment there. There's a balance between working on your business and your business. Most of us are spending our time, and that is how we generate business. Yeah, it's definitely a balance.
Yeah.
Definitely a balance.
But it's putting it in your diary and making sure it happens.
Mm.
If you put a client meeting in your diary, you do it. So that meeting with yourself, get that in the diaries.
Come on, Andy, type faster. Got other things to do.
His little fingers are a blur down there.
No. Like a little hamster. He's like a little hamster on a keyboard, not in a wheel.
It's a cat meme, the GIF.
Yeah, good impersonation, Emil.
Thank you. I practiced it earlier.
Yeah. I thought you were going to do an impression of a hamster in a wheel at one point when you made that comment. Okay, so Andy's eventually commented, my thought for the day, sometimes marketing isn't the problem, it might be the business owner. Interesting. That might be a topic for another time. So thanks guys for joining me today and sharing your knowledge, experience and advice. I really appreciate it. So thank you for that. Nice to sort of see your husband and Jensen joining in, Marie-Louise, as ex things. I think Jensen had the best exit of realising she shouldn't be there. It was, yeah. I can almost hear the sort of like beep, beep, beep as he was reversing. So, yeah.
Joys of working at home.
Yeah,
no,
school
so
holidays.
just didn't see your cat this time, Emil. So anyway, thanks again, guys. Thanks to those of you that sort of like tuned in either live or on the replay. And just to let you know what we're doing next week. So we're focusing on operations and resources next week, and we're going to take a look at what impact has the last couple of years had on employees. So please tune into that. And as I said, we'll end it there. Bye for now.